Here's a deeper look at what's likely to be in the Jeffrey Epstein-related files, the key individuals named so far, and the risks and benefits of full release, based on available reporting. What's likely to be in the files? According to reporting on the legislation and prior releases, some of the contents expected include records of unclassified communications, documents, and investigative materials from the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and U.S. Attorney offices pertaining to Epstein's investigations in Florida and New York, logs and travel records, e.g., flight logs of Epstein's private jet, visitor logs to his properties, travel and social circles data, records of civil settlements, plea agreements, immunity provisions, internal communications about how the investigations were handled or closed. Redactions notwithstanding, the files will likely reference politically exposed persons, PEPs, and government officials named in connection with Epstein's activities or investigations. Victim information will be heavily redacted or excluded. The legislation explicitly excludes disclosure of identifying data of minors or abuse material. ABC News. In other words, beyond what's already public, the files aim to provide a more complete view of how the Epstein network operated, how investigations were handled, and who may be implicated directly or indirectly, people already named or strongly connected. Here are some of the prominent individuals whose names appear in court records, filings, or news reporting in relation to Epstein. Donald Trump. The former U.S. president appears in flight log-related references and in social circle documents. Bill Clinton, also named in unsealed court documents, though not necessarily accused of wrongdoing in those releases. Prince Andrew named in documents in relation to a witness's allegation involving Epstein's New York townhouse. Alan Dershowitz, the former Harvard Law professor, appears in the documents, including allegations in certain filings. Jean-Luc Brunel, French modeling agency boss, associated with Epstein and named in multiple filings and investigations. It's important to underline, being named in the files does not mean someone has been charged or found guilty. Court filings often list many people in different contexts, witnesses, social contacts, travelers, etc. Risks and benefits of full release benefits. Transparency and accountability. Releasing the files gives the public, survivors, journalists, and researchers access to data about how the Epstein network functioned, how investigations proceeded or stalled, who may have been involved or complicit. Empower survivors. For people who say they were harmed, the release can offer more documentation, validation of claims, perhaps lead to new leads for justice or civil remedies. Systemic reform. Revealing weaknesses in investigation, prosecution, or oversight may lead to policy changes in how sex trafficking and powerful offenders are handled. Deterrence. Public exposure may deter future abuse when powerful people believe they might be held publicly accountable. Risks and caveats. Privacy and victim protection. Many documents contain sensitive victim info. If not properly redacted, release may harm survivors, expose them to retaliation or re-traumatization. Ongoing investigation/national security/privilege. The DOJ may claim some materials can't be released because they relate to ongoing probes, classified info, or executive privilege arguments. Experts warn the president or DOJ could use that as a blocking tactic. Time. Noise versus substance. Releases might dump large volumes of documents with poor indexing, heavy redactions, or largely duplicated material, making meaningful analysis difficult. Some critics say earlier batches contain little new insight. AP News. Reputational harm versus legal harm. Being named in a document does not equal conviction, so there is risk of reputational damage without due process, misinterpretation of context, political theater. The release may be framed politically by both sides, rather than used primarily for truth-seeking or justice, that may distort public understanding or survivors' expectations. In summary, if fully implemented, the files likely include a mix of travel logs, internal DOJ/FBI documents, civil and criminal case files, communications around Epstein's network, and naming of prominent individuals. Some of the biggest names are already known, but the full scope could be much wider. The stakes are high for survivors seeking truth, for institutions' accountability, for public trust. But the practical impact depends heavily on how transparent, searchable, and accessible the release is, how redactions are handled, and how the information is used or misused. If you like, I can pull together a list of lesser-known individuals beyond the big names mentioned in past filings and or a timeline of major document releases so far with key dates. Would you like that?
All those revelations that took the world by storm, I don't know, 3 days ago, here we are. We don't know what's in the government files. So we really feel that that is the missing piece of accountability. In 1996, when Maria Farmer made her report, Jeffrey Epstein was already under investigation as part of the Tower financial scandal. He was also under investigation and was sued by the State Department that leased him the former Iranian consulate in New York City. These are facts that people have long forgotten, but we want to go back to the beginning, find out that what law enforcement knew. I'm very happy that they listened, and the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York also has to release their litigation files. There's a huge record in the government files on Jeffrey Epstein, and we want to know who facilitated and who contributed to his rise to power. We think that will be found in the government files, and we hope for some government accountability and the creation of a fund or some kind of means to compensate these victims for the government's failure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there, and we heard from the victims with just stunningly emotional comments about how they have tried to survive all of this, and they're finally getting a little bit
it's been decades
of
for many
relief,
of them.
at least some acknowledgement here.
Yes.
James Marsh, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking to you.
Thank you for your coverage, and keep on this story. I don't think we're near the end, anywhere near the end.
Thank you. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will.
The bill to force the Justice Department to release all its Jeffrey Epstein files, it has passed both houses of Congress and will become law when the president signs it. Now, he says he will, but when and how? Unclear. Now, he does like public signings. This year, we've seen him hold signing ceremonies for such things as restoring the presidential fitness test. That's right there. He did a signing ceremony for the Genius Act, a cryptocurrency regulation law. He signed a slew of executive orders on camera on Inauguration Day, of course, including a pardon for the January 6th rioters. So, can we expect the same kind of public display when he signs the Epstein bill? Let's see. With us now, CNN political commentators Bakari Sellers and Scott Jennings. Scott is also the author of the brand new book, I mean like out yesterday?
Yes, sir.
A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Westernization. Soon-to-be best-selling author Scott Jennings, I'll go first to you. Will the president storm into a signing ceremony for this Epstein law? Do we expect the same kind of public attention as is given to the Fitness Act?
Yeah, great question. I don't know. I personally wouldn't expect a lot of fanfare. I mean, it feels to me like they're just in, okay, fine, let's get this over with mode. And so, but I don't really know. I haven't asked them and I haven't heard.
Why just get over it? Why not embrace it as something to shine the light on what all these women we saw yesterday were calling for?
Well, look, I think there's two things going on here. They deserve all of the justice and attention that they should want or should get because of what happened to them. I still am a little puzzled why they and the members of Congress that they've been working with haven't just told the public, what they know about who was involved in this, but that's their prerogative. But at the same time, Trump, look, he thinks all of this has been ginned up to create a narrative about him that isn't true. Democrats want people to believe he had something to do with this when he had nothing to do with it. And at the same time, we are finding out that even after Trump excommunicated Jeffrey Epstein from his life, Democrats continue to remain close to Jeffrey Epstein. But in Trump's mind, the narrative is he is somehow involved in this, even though we have Democrats fundraising with Epstein, we have Epstein programming congressional Democrats like Stacey Plaskett, and on and on and on. So I think it's become a source of frustration for him on the political narrative.
But it was the Trump administration in July that decided not to release this after, of course, they said they were going to, and after President Trump was informed that his name was in the Epstein files. Bakari Sellers, to you also, Bakari, I should say, an author of, I think, at least 3 books at this point, including 1 children's books and 2 grown-up books. Great to have so many fantastic authors on the show this morning. What do you expect the president now to do with this, either publicly, and what do you expect will happen in the Justice Department in the coming days?
First of all, congratulations, Scott, on your book coming out. That's always an amazing day for authors around the country when that occurs. But getting back to Jeffrey Epstein, I don't anticipate the president doing this with much fanfare. In fact, I am concerned about the prerogative given to the Department of Justice to scrub the files and not be fully transparent. We do know that there's no daylight between Pam Bondi and the wishes of Donald Trump. And so I don't expect the full reckoning of the Epstein files. The irony is that there are two pieces of irony. The first is that the person who asked for the full release of the Epstein files on the political stage was Donald Trump back in 2015. Second, you hear the Republican talking points about Jeffrey Epstein and fundraising with Democrats and communicating with his member of Congress and Stacey Plaskett during a conference hearing. But that's vastly different, and Republicans are conflating the issue on that point, and they're hoping to muddy the water, because the question is and surrounds the untoward activity Jeffrey Epstein had with his guest on Epstein Island, the untoward activity that others may have participated in, the fact that he was or is the most notorious child sex offender we've had come across the stage in a very long period of time, and people want to know the relationships about him and with him during that time period. It's not about who he was giving money to, although that's a problem, and it's not about him communicating with a member of Congress. It's a little bit deeper than that, and they just want to muddy the water.
You guys are both good strategists and authors, and I didn't even know the books were right behind you, Bakari, when I was calling you a successful author. But Bakari, just first to you, what is the risk if the Justice Department doesn't come right out with these files, if it tries to parse them out or none out? What's the political risk for them there?
And first, Mr. Berman is two-time New York Times bestselling author. I mean, just to be completely accurate here. But the risk is, we've seen the risk. I think we've seen the risk. We've seen the GOP influencers just with the binder on Capitol Hill running out of the White House saying, we have something, we have something, we have something. And then they didn't have jack. And I think you saw the pushback from the right wing. I think you saw the pushback from the MAGA base. It appears the only thing that can separate MAGA from its leader is Jeffrey Epstein, which is kind of interesting on its face. They spent all these years just with conspiracy theories about Democrats and pizza parlors molesting children that never came to fruition. And now they refuse to actually hearken with the true issue of Jeffrey Epstein. It's rich.